full one for you. I want to thank David Caprio with Children's Friend for coming in to talk about the testimony he's going to give next week pertaining to funding for DCYF. And I'd like to welcome my next guest, regular Bob Whitcomb.
Hello, Kate.
Thanks for coming in. I am good, and wanted to start off actually by talking about what I just spoke with David Caprio about. Last year, they cut funding for DCYF by $7 million.
Yeah.
This year, they're
Yeah.
level funding, which
Yeah.
he says, perpetuates that cut that they already incurred.
They had cuts starting way back in the Great Recession, didn't they? Isn't that when all this started? I think so. Yeah. Everything was devastated. We'll have another recession soon. We can do it again.
Well, DCYF, we see these horrible stories of child deaths and
Child abuse.
an understaffed DCYF that's not able to keep tabs on.
It's impossible. We're asking them to do too much, really.
Is there any? I mean, do you think
Well,
this will ever be fixed?
Well, if they raise taxes. But that's tough to do. It all depends on revenue to pay the salaries, to pay for all the other stuff that goes into looking out for these people. And also, I think, it takes social change, too. This is a very dysfunctional society in many ways. There's a very high incidence of drug abuse. A lot of kids are born out of wedlock, which makes them more vulnerable to bad stuff. It's a rather chaotic society.
So you talk about raising taxes, obviously. We have so many
yeah.
needs and only a finite amount of money.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic that we're going to see increased revenues under this Trump tax cut?
No, not going to happen. Not going to. We've been down this road. I think there'll be a little kind of a goose, even though you would know today from what the stock market was saying, which I'm sure you checked in on earlier. That you've been bankrupted. It's like the old joke: how did you go bankrupt? First gradually, then suddenly.
Well, was this just a matter of time? Let's talk about the markets then.
Yeah.
Is this the correction we've all been waiting for?
Well, yeah, I think I think too many people want to blame this on Trump. Yeah, he should keep his big trap shut about tariffs and stuff. This is not a good idea. But I think a lot of this, and I think you and I have talked about this the last year or two, is just the market, I believe, is overpriced. That doesn't mean it's not going to go up 1,200 points tomorrow. It may well, but overall, it's too high. It's been going up since the end of the Great Recession. Actually, it's been going up since late winter, early spring of 2009,
Yes.
basically. Okay, and this can't go on forever.
So giving Trump too much credit and also too
I
much
mean,
blame.
some of these are just things that are out of his hand. I think he's making it worse by this sort of erratic stuff. It's not so much his opinions, is that he's so crazy, so demagogic, so impulsive, that it's very difficult for business or for governments that we're negotiating with to have any idea what to do. And this is not good for business confidence. If you think the leader of the free world is erratic, this isn't good just for planning. If I were running a big company like GE, the idea that you'd have an unstable, narcissistic president of the United States would not fill me with confidence.
Well, we've seen how the market behaved today.
Yeah, and it could go, it could go up. What's it, Friday? It could go up on Monday. I think overall, though, I think it's overpriced, and I'm not the only one who thinks that. Actually. No,
Speaking of Fridays, an interesting development that took place today, and GoLocal sent out the second round of e-blast pertaining to the state releasing the Amazon HQ2 proposal, 127 pages, but
no dollars.
No dollars.
Yeah, I thought that was very strange. I glanced at some of that stuff. I think it's. I'm not sure what is their argument for not releasing the numbers.
We did hear from Commerce. They said that because they still have ongoing potential to work with Amazon to get some of the ancillary, if potentially it goes to Boston.
I suppose that's somewhat plausible. Still, the main negotiation to get the second headquarters, which I never believed. There were dollar numbers given there for incentives, and that negotiation is over. I would think they'd be able to release.
Do you think this is a little, we keep advocating for transparent government, and especially now in an election year, people really want to know what the bread and butter of the administration is and how they try to lure companies in with how much in taxpayer incentives.
Well, I think you raised sort of a broader point we've talked about, admittedly, which is, I think, having those numbers, not just the sort of other ideas involved, like putting in the Superman building.
The big A. The big A.
The big A. You know, that's certainly interesting and all that, but we really do need to know the numbers too to get a better sense, to get a clearer sense of what is the overall economic development policy and philosophy of the governor and her administration. And I think for that you really do need some numbers. Now, I fully agree you can't release a lot of this stuff while the negotiation's underway. You really can't do that. It really screws it up. It could just sabotage the whole thing. Having said all that, the main part of the negotiation, which was to get the second headquarters, though again I thought that was implausible, is over. I think there is a good chance that they'll get at least a bit of the Amazon business. I mean, Amazon's already about to employ 2,000 people in Boston. You know, even without the second headquarters. You see that?
I saw that, yes.
Huge thing. So I think, especially given the commuting nightmare in Boston, the congestion and all that, and because, you know, we have a couple of distinguished colleges, universities here in Providence. We've got trains to get between here and Boston.
We could get some of it.
We could get some of it. In fact, I think we probably will get some of it. But, you know, a few hundred people. But I really do wish for our public understanding of the Raimondo administration's philosophy, I really wish we'd seen some numbers in there. In other words, what were they willing to offer?
What were they putting on the table, so to speak?
Putting on the table?
Well, let's not go far from Amazon, because earlier this week I had Merrill Brown, one of GoLocal 24's investors and board members, talking about all the flux in the media world, talking about Sinclair, talking about Facebook. But his parting shot when we were talking was the president's treatment of Amazon and Bezos in the Washington Post. In your opinion, is the president going overboard with Bezos?
Yes, I think he is. You could make arguments that the Postal Service could maybe get more money out of Amazon, even though it should be said Amazon has sort of been a savior for the Postal Service, because as the snail mail's gone away to be replaced by email, they've lost a tremendous amount of their revenue.
But people are shipping stuff and buying stuff.
People are shipping stuff more than ever, and you know, Amazon ships a lot of its stuff through the Postal Service. Everybody thinks it's UPS or FedEx. That's not true. So it's been great. Maybe they could get a better deal, but you know, it's been something of a godsend for them so far.
Until the drones start dropping the stuff.
On our heads. I think what Trump is trying to do is somehow connect the Washington Post, which is not owned by Amazon, by the way. It's owned by Bezos, not this big public company called Amazon, and he's trying to undermine them because they are doing what the previous ownerships of the Washington Post did, which was cover Washington intensely, and especially the administration. And he doesn't like that. He only wants nice things to be said about him, as most of us do. But you know, if you're president, you have to be willing to take some negative stuff. So he's basically trying to undermine the Washington Post by gluing it to Amazon and these mostly false statements he's making about Amazon allegedly ripping off the Postal Service.
It was an interesting vantage point from Merrill Brown this week when we had him in studio. Glad to have you here. Do you want to give folks a little bit of a preview of this weekend?
Oh, what are we talking? Well, I talk about Sinclair, you know, which owns Channel 10 here in Providence. I think do they own a TV station in Maine or something? Anyway, they want to buy a whole bunch more. They want to buy Tribune Media, which has a whole bunch of stations, and if they do buy it, the new behemoth would cover about 73% of the broadcast markets in the United States. I don't think that would be a good thing. I think the business of Sinclair, you know, ordering its people to deliver basically pro-Trump editorials, I'm kind of blasé about that. There's nothing new about ownership of media companies ordering their local properties to say nice things.
So do you think it's just Deadspin being able to put it together so succinctly in that way, and then just the slightly off repetition, and they all come into...
Right. It was very funny, that graphic. They're all saying the same thing at the same time.
I think that's what it was. It wasn't the script itself. I think it was seeing it all in that one place.
The automation.
The sort of,
The automation. That actually didn't bother. I thought it was sort of funny. And they've got this guy called Boris, who's sort of friendly, as you'd expect with the Russians, who's delivering these sort of alleged anti-terrorist diatribes that kind of connected to the Trump administration.
Threat to our democracy.
A threat to our democracy. But that doesn't bother me so much as kind of the underlying problem in the American media, which is the companies are too big, and they should be broken up. And of course, the two biggest media companies should be broken up are Google and Facebook. And I think that's much more of a danger to our democracy and to our free market, that so many of these local outlets are owned by the same people.
Well, you certainly got the media perspective, so if you've been seeing stuff about Sinclair, be sure to read Bob Whitcomb's column this weekend. Any other tidbit you want to entice people with?
Let me see. Something I'm going to talk about, I think, but probably not in a week. There's an interesting story about UMass buying up local little colleges. There are too many, a lot of people, economists and academics, think there are too many little private colleges in New England. A lot of them are failing.
Did you see Mount Ida?
Mount Ida, that's right, being taken over by UMass. Mm-hmm. And I think this is sort of a way forward for a lot of these institutions, of which, again, I think there are too many. They really have no economic raison d'etre, as they say in cocktail parties.
Or as someone who spends some time in France. Well, I appreciate your giving us a little heads up as to what we can expect this coming weekend. You can read Bob Whitcomb on GoLocal Prov on Sundays, and of course, see him here in studio when we can get him. Bob Whitcomb.
Can I slide one thing?
One more thing.
URI, I think it was great. They picked the associate head coach to take over as the head coach, a wonderfully conservative, in the old sense of the word, respectable, old-fashioned promotion, instead of hiring a celebrity, whose name I will not mention.
We'll have more on URI to come here at GoLocal. But Bob Whitcomb, thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Happy weekend.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with our next guest here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.